Tonight, tensions are rising over the nuclear power plants in Ukraine and fears of a potential disaster in the making as the U.S. unveils a massive new military aid package for Ukraine. 24 hours after President Zelensky's dire warning about the danger at the nuclear facility, the U.S. is now rolling out $775 million worth of ammunition and artillery. For the first time, the U.S. is sending Scan Eagle surveillance drones along with rockets and new howitzers. All of this as new shelling hits dangerously close to that power plant. Ukraine is accusing Russia of using it as a military base. Growing fears of possible radiation spreading across Europe as hundreds flee to neighboring towns. The tropical storm warning just issued as we come on the air. The system looking to bring flooding rain to Texas. New monsoon storms target the Southwest. Flash flood alerts from Texas to Arizona. Talks are underway between the January 6th committee and former Vice President Mike Pence's team. This after Pence said that he would consider an invitation to testify. Jonathan Karl one-on-one with the committee's vice chair, Congresswoman Liz Cheney. And this question, will lawmakers ask former President Trump to testify as well? Emotional testimony from Vanessa Bryant in her lawsuit against Los Angeles County. The wife of Kobe Bryant says she lives in fear of her children seeing the graphic photos first responders took and then shared of the helicopter crash that killed her husband, daughter Gianna, and 7 others. The Biden administration issued a new ultimatum to U.S. airlines following months of massive flight delays and cancellations. The Department of Transportation tells 10 carriers to do more to help stranded passengers or face new government regulations. The immigration stare down intensifies between Texas and New York City. Governor Greg Abbott sent 2 more buses of asylum seekers today, including 15 children and a pregnant woman in urgent need of medical care. How the city is now working to find a place for everyone. Investigators search for the cause of a deadly mid-air collision. 3 people killed. The pilots heard radioing each other right before the crash. The massive fire seen for miles in Massachusetts, flames destroying buildings, cars, and boats. New Orleans mayor threatens to call off Mardi Gras, the critical shortage that could cancel the celebrations. And the Little League World Series. Teams pay tribute to an injured player, his little brother taking to the field.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Lindsay Davis in for David. Tonight, the tropical storm warnings just in. We'll get to that in a moment, but we do begin with a major announcement. Just 24 hours after Ukraine's president warned that Russia's occupation of that massive nuclear plant has put the world on the verge of nuclear disaster, the United States promises a new round of military aid to Ukraine. That nuclear plant, the largest in all of Europe, is now at the center of a dangerous confrontation. Rockets falling close by. Each side is blaming the other. Communities in the area are bracing for the worst, conducting disaster drills, stockpiling iodine tablets. And sadly, people in Russian-controlled areas are fleeing their homes, evacuating to safer parts of Ukraine. The Pentagon is now pledging $775 million in new military aid, more rockets, javelins, and drones. And tonight, as Russia's war in Ukraine approaches the 6-month mark, Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterates that the U.S. will support Ukraine for as long as it takes. ABC's Britt Clennett leads us off inside Ukraine.
Tonight, the U.S. announcing a massive $775 million military aid package for Ukraine. It includes more ammunition for the HIMARS rocket systems, 16 new howitzers, and for the first time, the Pentagon sending 15 Scan Eagle reconnaissance drones to better identify key Russian targets. It comes amid growing fears of an impending disaster at Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia that could lead to radiation contamination across the continent. Russia ordering staff not to show up to work today as both sides warn of an escalation. Ukraine accuses Russia of using the plant as a military base. Ukrainian officials posting this video showing Russian vehicles inside the plant. ABC News has not verified the date this video was taken. After shelling, newly released before and after satellite images from several days ago show scorch marks in the area near the plant. Nearby communities taking no chances, conducting disaster drills in response to those attacks. First responders practiced putting on protective gear and treating the injured. Hundreds fleeing the Russian-occupied areas around the plant, families gathering together, consoling each other.
We've been told there would be a huge convoy of cars coming in from the Russian-occupied areas, and here they are, taking everything they can with them to get to safety.
14-year-old Maria Zalata relieved to finally be in non-occupied territory with her brother after a 2-day journey.
My mom also crying because that's so big happiness.
Such a relief for these families who managed to escape. Let's get right to Britt Clennett in Ukraine. Britt, what's the latest on the status of that nuclear plant?
Well, Lindsay, the mayor of Enerhoda, who's in exile in Zaporizhia, he told us that despite the renewed attacks, radiation levels at the plant are still normal, for now at least. Now, tonight, President Zelensky also thanking President Biden for the new aid and says a plan is in the works to send a UN team to that nuclear power plant under threat in Zaporizhia. Lindsay?
All eyes on that nuclear plant. Britt, thank you. Back here now, the tropical storm warnings just issued. South Texas is bracing for wind and rain as monsoon rains batter the southwest. A mixed blessing for drought-stricken Texas. This truck in Pasadena tumbling off an overpass in heavy rain. The driver miraculously jumping out before it falls. And tonight, that new system in the Gulf of Mexico coming together rapidly could combine with monsoon rains. Meteorologist Cheryl Scott from our Chicago station WLS joins us now. Cheryl, time this tropical threat all out for us.
Yes, Lindsay, we're now looking at an 80% chance that this tropical disturbance forms and develops into a named storm. Let's take you to the maps, and you can see the storm rapidly developing here in the Gulf. It's going to quickly move up to the north and west. Tropical storm warnings for the coast of Texas and also Mexico expected to make landfall into the day tomorrow. This moisture is going to feed into the desert southwest, where we have flood watches from Arizona into New Mexico, slow-moving thunderstorms, flooding rains, where we're looking at potentially 2 to 3+ inches, and then all of this rain shifts to the east, where drought-stricken Texas could see 5 to 7+ inches of rain, flash flooding, the flood threat. Great, Lindsay.
All right, we need some of that rain in the northeast. Cheryl, thank you. Now to that intriguing remark from former Vice President Mike Pence saying he would consider testifying before the January 6th committee if he was asked. Tonight, Representative Liz Cheney, the Republican vice chair of that committee, weighing in on that possibility in an exclusive interview. And will former President Trump be asked to testify as well? Here's ABC's chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Former Vice President Mike Pence says he would consider testifying before the January 6th committee. And today, that committee's vice chair, Liz Cheney, told me talks are already underway on making that happen.
He said this week he's willing to consider testifying if he is asked. Are you going to ask him?
So we've been in discussions with his counsel. When the country has been through something as grave as this was, everyone who has information has an obligation to step forward. So I would hope that he will do that.
So you think we'll see him here in September in this room before the committee?
I would hope that he will understand how important it is for the American people to know every aspect of the truth about what happened that day.
No comment tonight from the former vice president. He was right in the middle of it all on January 6th, defying Trump and facing violent threats as a result. Those top advisors have testified before the committee. Pence himself has been reluctant to talk about what happened that day, sometimes even downplaying it. But now, as he considers his own run for president, Pence says he is ready to open up about what he went through.
The American people have a right to know what happened that day. And in the months and years ahead, I'll be telling my story even more frequently.
Then there's the question of Donald Trump. Could he be asked to testify too? Cheney did not close the door.
I don't want to make any announcements about that this morning.
But it's possible you'd ask him before wrapping up to testify.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get in front of committee deliberations about that. I do think it's very important. His interactions with our committee will be under oath.
Jonathan Karl joins us now from Washington. And John, if Republicans take over the Congress in midterms, the work of the January 6th committee will soon come to a grinding halt. Congresswoman Cheney clearly aware the clock is ticking here.
She's keenly aware the time is running out and looking to do all that she can do before the end of this Congress. I would look, Lindsay, for at least 2 more hearings, potentially high-impact, high-profile hearings in the fall, and, of course, a final report.
Jonathan Karl, our thanks to you. Now to the emotional testimony from Vanessa Bryant, the widow of NBA star Kobe Bryant, in her lawsuit over photos from the helicopter crash that killed her husband and daughter Gianna. Bryant sued LA County and some of its employees after those photos were shared, even allegedly passed around at a bar. Bryant says that she lives in fear every day that her 3 surviving daughters will see those pictures. Here's reporter Veronica Miracle from our Los Angeles station, KABC.
A heartbroken Vanessa Bryant entering a California courthouse to face a day of grueling testimony in the trial over leaked photos from the horrific helicopter crash that killed her husband Kobe, 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others. Bryant in tears telling the jury, "I'm upset about what they did to my husband and daughter. I want answers." She's suing LA County agencies for negligence and invasion of privacy, alleging officers abused their access to the crash site by taking and sharing gratuitous photos of her family's remains. Breaking down on the stand, Bryant said, "I live in fear every day. I don't want my children to ever come across them." When Bryant arrived at the scene of the January 2020 crash in the Santa Monica Mountains, she says she pleaded with law enforcement, "If you can't bring my babies back, then please secure the area." Her suit alleges that they did not, and later tried to cover up the photos that were spreading among officers and being shared with members of the public. One officer even allegedly showing off the photos at a bar. Bryant only learning of their existence over a month later in media reports. "I wanted to run down the block and just scream," she said. "I trusted them not to do these things. My husband and daughter deserve dignity. I want to remember my husband and daughter the way they were." And Lindsay, tonight a lawyer for LA County saying in a statement the county worked hard to make sure those photos were never widely distributed and that evidence will show they never were. Lindsay?
Veronica, thank you. Now to that warning to the airlines after a disastrous summer travel season. The Department of Transportation is telling them to step up and do better when cancellations and delays occur, providing meal vouchers and hotel accommodations. The DOT is also set to launch a new website to help passengers understand their rights. Here's ABC's transportation correspondent, Gio Benitez.
Tonight, the Department of Transportation putting airlines on notice, saying fix your problems or new rules are coming. Secretary Pete Buttigieg writing to America's 10 largest carriers that the level of disruption Americans have experienced this summer is unacceptable, noting that in the first 6 months of this year, roughly 24% of domestic flights have been delayed and 3% canceled.
The Secretary has said to take a step back. Let's rethink where we are in the industry and actually get back to scheduling an operation that you can actually accommodate.
The airlines lobbying group Not Staying Quiet responding that the pandemic has wreaked havoc on all businesses, saying industries across the economy are facing a range of challenges, including a tight labor market. And the government tonight with direct requests for airlines to provide meal vouchers for delays of 3 hours or more and lodging accommodations for passengers who must wait overnight at an airport because of disruptions within the carrier's control. So what are you owed if an airline cancels or delays your flight? Well, the Department of Transportation now says it's going to launch a website in the next few weeks, making that crystal clear no matter which airline you fly. Lindsay?
Good.
This is the reason why that all airlines should have their own hotel in case of dire emergency situations. That way, maybe they can limit some of their cost rather than it going to whoever or whatever. Going back to this court proceedings real quick.
Lindsay?
Let's go backwards real quick. First of all, the deal with the
are still normal for now.
hang on, tropical storm gonna come. That's still about the tropical storm.
For the January 6th committee, if he was asked. Tonight, Representative Liz Cheney, the Republican vice chair of that committee, weighing in on that possibility in an exclusive interview. And will former President Trump be asked to testify?
Let's go backwards a little bit. Go back, hope, right there.
Where we're looking at potential.
Okay, we see. Right.
Comment tonight from the former vice president. He was right in the middle of it all on January 6th, defying Trump and facing violent...
Right there. I just got through talk. First of all, the deal with the basketball player. I think that's just appalling. But you know what? In the 21st century, with all the cameras and all the technology, it can probably be expected. Towards more and more graphic situations like that are going to come out to the public. You know, professional people. They're people too, and you know, to do something like that, yeah, it's disrespectful. But in today's society, we're probably going to see more of it. But getting back to the deal January the 6th, I was just talking to a couple that's about 25 years older than me, maybe even a little bit older, that can remember how the government used to be versus how it is today. And we all agreed that our ancestors and our great ancestors and our ancestors' ancestors is probably rolling around in their graves right now because of what happened January the 6th. But we come to the conclusion that basically it was almost staged to the degree that it was almost like a Hollywood manuscript of hyping up the American people. And both sides know that they was being hyped, okay? Both sides know that it was happening, regardless whether it was the Democrats or Republicans. But I really believe that they didn't think that the hype was going to reach the level of what it reached in the degree towards looking at what you're looking at right there in going to actually kill or attempt to kill the vice president. If the Speaker of the House would have went ahead and issued out National Guard for that event that day, there's a strong possibility that it could have turned out to have been a whole lot worse than what it did, pertaining to it being a bloodbath. Because I don't know for sure the way that the public was hyped up, if the presence of the National Guard would have been enough to deter them from them doing what they done. So whenever you get to looking at all the P's and the Q's and crossing all the T's and etc., it's both parties really that has to take on a bit of responsibility, though it was Donald Trump, the main one, that was hyping it up because he didn't believe that he had won the election. But even after that he noted he had lost the election, he still acted as if that he won the election. That's the part there that is the dirty smear tactic that Donald Trump drug the American people through, that to this day he still has not given account for. He still hasn't given account for the way that he unjustly brought the American people through this hardship that could have been a whole lot worse. And to be quite honest with you, it's reached a point that people such as myself and the people that I just got through talking to, people that that purchased our farm over here in the early 80s, it has reached a point that a lot of people are ashamed of America, because we know that because of our government officials, they have made a great deal of people angry. They have pissed off half of the world. And to see the things that are going on right now, you tend to wonder if it was possibly intentionally caused to create some sort of a diversion. That way, instead of us looking at the politicians that has failed us for the past 30 plus years, we would be looking at stuff like this. That's what we believe. We believe that the higher ups, whenever they allowed for Donald Trump to become a candidate to become president, that basically they was bringing in a circus clown, and they was hoping that the circus clown would have created such of an act that instead of the American people looking at the true perpetrators who has failed us, we would be looking at only one or two pertaining to the actors in the circus. So whenever you get to looking at the deeper part of this, it goes a whole lot deeper than Donald Trump. It actually goes to the party. Various members in the party, state senators, congressmen, etc., that this was a planned event to create a diversion so that the American people would take their eye off of who was really guilty of how that they have let the American people down, and they would be looking at other areas versus the one that they should be looking at. It's a very clever move pertaining to our officials in the government, but we got news for them. People such as ourselves can see through what that they have done here, and the bottom line, our government has failed us. They have failed us in so many different areas. It's not even funny towards what exactly happened, how it happened, when it happened, going all the way back 30 plus years ago. And to this day, George Bush has still not apologized for killing the people that he killed over in Iraq in regards towards there not being any bombs of mass destruction pertaining to the Iraqi war, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, etc., that I believe personally, and the people that I talked to a while ago does too, that if those two events did not occur in regards towards Desert Storm and Desert Shield, we never would have gotten attacked by 9/11. We got attacked by 9/11 because of that in which what our government officials either had done or what they promised that they was going to do that they didn't do. That's what brought on 9/11, and it was not financed through the Afghanistan people, through a bunch of gold herders, because at the time they were so uncoordinated and they didn't have the skills or the smarts or the money to pull it off, because the Bushes was so intricately connected with the Saudi Arabians that actually financed and masterminded 9/11, because they was the only ones that was granted permission to leave in the United States the day after 9/11 pertaining to aviation being grounded. As Donald Trump has spoken, and we talked about this too, that you got to pick through the things that Donald Trump says that are accurate versus the things that are not accurate. But one of the things that Donald Trump has said that I think prompted the raid down in Florida was that he said that the American people has still not gotten to the bottom of 9/11. And that is factual, and that is truthful, right down to the T. And until people start looking at other areas pertaining to the failure of our government, other than can't see the trees for the forest, they're never going to be able to see the truth in this diversion that was created with January the 6th. They're never going to be able to see the truth towards the diversion that was created in 9/11, towards who the true perpetrators was, that to this day are still at large. To this day are still at large. Where our American politicians messed up, I believe, was going all the way back into the Nixon, Carter, maybe even before that era, towards allowing for OPEC, for the Saudi Arabians to become in control of OPEC, just as Donald Trump said that if it weren't for the oil, they wouldn't be able to finance various terrorist groups. So the failure has begun from within our own government that has allowed these things to get out of hand to begin with. That's where the failure begins. And until the American people are willing to open their eyes and see the whole truth and not just part of the truth, they're going to continue to toil with us and dangle with us like we're a bunch of Fruit Loops, because that's what they're hoping that we are. They're hoping that we're just a bunch of Fruit Loops, and that they have pulled it off in one of the biggest travesties that's ever hit America, while they're living out the rest of their remaining lives and living in luxury condominiums and driving nice cars and eating steaks and living better than everybody else, while they're sitting back laughing, and while America is left holding the bag and the bag being empty. It is so sad in what has occurred here since Ronald Reagan's administration.
Result.
So sad. So sad. Unbelievable sad.
From 2 months to reach Texas from Venezuela. With more and more children on those buses, today city officials announced a program called Project Open Arms to try and quickly integrate some 1,000 migrant children into New York City public schools, simplifying the enrollment process and calling for more bilingual teachers. Officials also had a message for Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has been sending the buses on a one-way trip without coordinating with officials at their destinations.
We're asking the governor to please stop and let all of us work together to figure out how we can best provide the assistance that these human beings need.
Well, tonight, the mayor of New York City issuing an emergency solicitation seeking bids for up to 5,000 hotel rooms and other facilities that can accommodate and provide services to these migrants on just a 24-hour notice, Lindsay.
Still need more hotel rooms. Mola, thank you. And we're learning more about that deadly midair accident near San Jose, California. 2 small planes colliding on their final approaches to an airport that has no air traffic control. It happened midday in clear weather, and the 2 pilots were speaking to each other on their radios just before the collision. Here's ABC's Alex Prochet.
Investigators tonight are desperate to understand how 2 planes collided midair just south of San Jose, California. Home security footage capturing 1 plane approaching the Watsonville Municipal Airport. Suddenly, debris as it falls from the sky. In the distance, a ball of fire as the second plane crashes at the airport.
It was almost like a missile hitting another plane, as if the faster plane had gone right through the smaller plane.
Traffic, Twin Texas 740.
Audio linked to the plane's tail numbers show the pilots communicating right before the collision.
Full stop, looking for traffic on left base. Yeah, I see you. You're behind me. I'm gonna go around then, because you're coming at me pretty quick, man.
The FAA says the first plane, which slammed into this field, was a single-engine Cessna with 1 person on board. The second, that barreled into this airport hangar, a twin-engine Cessna with 2 people on board. The NTSB confirming 3 fatalities, adding that a dog in the larger Cessna also did not survive.
You're supposed to see and avoid the other guy. But if the 2 pilots can't see each other because of the physiology of the airplane, one a high wing, the other a low wing, then you've got a major problem.
Lindsay, FAA officials tell us that nobody on the ground was hurt, but Watsonville Municipal Airport, often used by private planes, is known as an uncontrolled airport, meaning that pilots signal their plans for approach without the direction of a control tower. Lindsay?
Alex, thank you. And in Virginia, a federal judge has sentenced a British national, one of the so-called ISIS Beatles, to 8 concurrent life sentences without parole for the kidnapping and deaths of 4 Americans nearly a decade ago. Al-Shafi al-Sheikh was captured in Syria in 2018. Surviving witnesses testified to the group's brutality, including beheadings. Among their victims, journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff, and aid workers Peter Kassig and Kayla Mueller. When we come back, the popular summer vacation spot that's reporting 2 shark attacks on the same day, and the massive fire seen for miles in Massachusetts, the flames destroying buildings, cars, and boats.
I started. Let's go forward. Let's go forward.
This is report hearing a series of explosions.
Let's back up a little bit. Right there.
Emergency crews on the scene of a massive fire at a boatyard in Plymouth County, Massachusetts. Flames destroying several buildings, about 24 cars, and a number of boats. Smoke was visible for miles. Witnesses report hearing a series of explosions. The cause of the fire is now under investigation. When we come back, the mayor of New Orleans threatens to call off Mardi.
All right, let's go forward.
Time.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
To the index now. Imagine New Orleans without Mardi Gras. Hard to do, but the mayor there is now warning a severe shortage of police officers may force the city to cancel the upcoming celebrations. Police officials say that they're considering asking neighboring agencies to help. When we come back, Little League teams pay tribute to an injured player, his little brother taking to the field.
Go forward.
And I found it in 5.
Go forward.
Finally tonight, America Strong. Little League ball players setting the example. Signs of support all over Williamsport. Team Easton bracelets on nearly everyone's wrist. There are messages on shoes and on billboards. More messages on signs. Utah, let's ride. The opposing team from Tennessee even put on the hats of the Utah team and then went over to show support. Easton typically pitches and plays outfield for the Snow Canyon team from Santa Clara, Utah. He was with his team in Williamsport, Pennsylvania this week and scheduled to play in this afternoon's Little League World Series game. But early Monday morning, he suffered a serious head injury when he fell off the top bunk of a bed. He was airlifted to a children's hospital where he underwent life-saving surgery. And when the game he was scheduled to play in was about to start this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Little League World Series. This year, we seem to have a miracle of our own involving one of the players.
Easton's father, Jace, shared this update on Easton's condition with ESPN's Julie Foudy.
Just small little miracles each day that we're so grateful for. Woke up this morning, he's in the hallway with the nurses, and he's able to stand up and take some steps, and we couldn't be more grateful.
Easton's younger brother, Brogan, was added to the roster, standing in for Easton in today's game.
I'm excited to play on the team, and I'm excited to just play for my brother.
Doing it for his big bro. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis for David and all of us here. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
ABC Sunday.
We gotta go with...
That was special. The little boy.
Keep testing. They hope that if people know they have it, they can avoid passing it on.
Back, we'll give you a call, okay?
Your knowledge is power. If you know that you are contagious and you have COVID, the best thing you can do is to stay home like you're asked to do.
Reporting in Sikeston, Missouri, Carrie Keene, News 3.
And with school starting, districts have their own policies. We have some of those policies over on our website, WSILTV.com. And folks, it has been a beautiful Friday for us, Katie. We are so fortunate, and like I said, blue skies, really nice temperatures for our Friday.
Yeah, it's a great Friday evening. If you have plans tonight, it's a great chance to do something, or if you want to get outside, now is definitely the time to do it, at least for some of us. But this photo was sent in by Randy Anderson out in Saline County, getting some farming done. Again, it's a great chance to get outside if you have any yard work or even farming to get done. Now is maybe the chance that you want to do that. But live look outside right now, temperatures are pretty nice, especially considering it's mid-August. 85 for Mount Vernon and Perryville, 84 in Carbondale, and 82 in Sparta. Lots of blue skies and sunshine this evening. We do see a bit of a change tonight. Those clouds are going to begin filling in ahead of our next system that we're keeping an eye on. Temperatures dipping to about 67. But again, if you want to get outside, maybe get some gardening done or mow, this evening is a great chance to do it. It's not a bad chance Saturday and Sunday, but I'll let you know exactly why it's only okay, as well as my full forecast coming up.
Thank you, Katie. Folks, we have a News 3 follow-up tonight. We've learned a third person died because of that house explosion in Wyatt, Missouri. 22-year-old Miranda Gale Golden succumbed to her injuries this afternoon. She was the mother of the 3-year-old girl who died yesterday. And Miranda's significant other, Corey Coleman, died in the explosion on Monday. The rest of the 7 victims, police say, are in stable condition and they're still getting medical treatment. This is a developing story. Stay with us for updates. A Jefferson County man will spend decades in prison for child exploitation. 28-year-old Cody Rector was sentenced to 75 years in prison. He got 40 years for sexual assault of a child and 35 years for creating and distributing child pornography. And tonight, Missouri police need your help to find a missing woman. Her name is Cheyenne Morrison, and she's from Sykeston. Take a look. This is her. She's been missing for more than
Wow.
Government in many places. You could do it everything from false electors to break down the CDC communications on public health to many of the different states during the pandemic. And then when you look at federal law enforcement, their most essential partners are state and local law enforcement. And there's been a wedge driven between those and driven inside those organizations over the last 4 to 5 years. You've seen similar dynamics with the military, although it's stayed relatively more intact, I think, than federal and state and local law enforcement. The big question then is, how do we enforce laws across the country evenly? Who is going to carry those out? You have things such as the constitutional sheriff's movement, where they think they don't need to abide by federal law or even work with federal law enforcement. And then the bigger picture is something terrible happens in a jurisdiction where the FBI has been so degraded by Trump's rhetoric, a strong Trump district, let's say, and the FBI can't develop sources. They can't work with state and locals. They can't move an investigation forward. That doesn't help anybody but Donald Trump, but it definitely hurts those constituents of the United States that depend on the FBI ever more in a cyber environment, by the way, where crimes cross over borders, to do their job and protect the citizens of the United States.
Yeah, I can't imagine if a Black Lives Matter activist had said something similar, how the right might be reacting to that. But a subject for another time. Thank you, Clint Watts and Bradley Moss, for being here. And coming up next on the Readout, Arizona is still a swing state. So why have Arizona Republicans
testifying? Cheney's answer there was very interesting. You know, sort of, I just don't want to talk about that this morning, right? Politely.
Right.
But what more can you tell us about that possibility? Because clearly it is one, and Congressman, I just have to put this in the context of, you've already had, right, 7 hearings. You've already presented so much to the country that to do it at this point, it says something. I may not know what that something is, but it says something. What more can you tell us about his possible testimony?
Well, you know, the committee rules don't allow either of us to announce, you know, witness lists or what witnesses have said in testimony. I'll just speak for myself, saying that I would very much like to hear from the ex-president, but I really can't make an announcement as to, you know, our witness list, you know, unless the committee votes to do that, and there's been no vote of the committee to do that.
Your committee did recently interview the Trump former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and he, after that, has spoken. Here's what he told Fox News last night about that interview with your committee.
They were chasing witches, right? This was a far field wandering interview. I spoke the truth to them. I can't tell you the details, Laura. They were looking for discussions about the 25th Amendment, discussions that I never seriously undertook with any of my counterparts. They were looking to build a storyline, the conclusion of which was already written.
Chasing witches, Congresswoman?
Well, I think my colleague Adam Kinzinger described this very well. I think, as Adam said, this is spin on the part of the former Secretary of State and our former colleague in the House. He certainly doesn't want to alienate Trump supporters, as he is hoping one day to run for president. But we're not chasing any witches in any of these hearings. We're asking questions. We're hoping to ascertain the facts. I think, you know, one of the things that I mentioned the other day, the 25th Amendment was not invoked. So, you know, to suggest that there's some kind of scheme to prove something, no, we're just trying to find the facts, and that's the job that's been assigned to the committee. And I guess our former colleague is trying to make sure that he doesn't alienate Trump world.
All right, thank you very much, Congressman Lofgren. I appreciate your time.
You bet.
And next, dangerous rhetoric from candidates running for office right now.
An administration of people like Garland, okay, who should be not only impeached, he probably should be executed.
Plus, Vladimir Putin's playing with nuclear fire. That's how one nuclear expert describes the showdown in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, home to the largest nuclear plant in Europe. And trouble for Dr. Mehmet Oz and several other Republicans in must-win races for the GOP to win the Senate. Are Democrats going to pull a surprise?
You bet.
And next, dangerous rhetoric from candidates running for office right now.
An administration of people like Garland, okay, who should be not only impeached, he probably should be executed.
Plus, Vladimir Putin's playing with nuclear fire. That's how one nuclear expert describes the showdown in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, home to the largest nuclear plant in Europe. And trouble for Dr. Mehmet Oz and several...
These hearings were asking questions.
An administration of people like Garland.
Who's Garland?
He not only impeached, he probably should be executed.
I guess that's his rival.
Yeah.
Plus, Vladimir Putin's plan.
Unbelievable.
Base Camp Lejeune between
Arizona. That's right. Biden won the state that was probably home to Republican firebrands like Barry Goldwater.
See, whenever the United States politicians wants to get up in front of the TV and talk more about themselves or their opponent towards what that they hadn't done or what that they're not doing, versus more by talking about how can we get out of the problems that we're in. It's all rhetoric as far as a diversion that once more the American people aren't paying close enough attention to, of realizing that instead of them being a part of the solution of the problem, they're actually part of the problem. Because nobody other than maybe the Democrats that's talking about, rechanging this and rechanging that, and let's add stimulants pertaining to people that's going to engage in putting panels on their houses, or people that's going to go with electrical vehicles towards adding some sort of incentives. It's only the Democrats that has started doing that, and I'm the one that basically mentioned basically about a year ago that if they didn't do this, that they was never going to kick off the ideal of going solar or battery, because whenever you get to looking at the petroleum industry, that's actually contrary to what they're involved in doing towards making money off of crude oil. We're going to have to balance this some way or another in regards towards all the negativity if we're going to make it through all of this, towards actually getting through all this. Like I said, all these different politicians that want to get up there on TV and do their basically their showboating, like a bunch of peacocks walking around, but yet don't nobody have no true solutions to the problems, is a bunch of BS. This is not how the politics that I remember that was being run back in the 60s and the 70s was being run. This is a whole different type of format in how that they get up there now and they want to criticize and ridicule one another, versus getting up there on TV and telling people what kind of solutions that it's going to take to get out of the problems that we're in. This is a whole new different format in comparison to the things that I was adjusted to as a young man whenever they was struggling towards making life better for the Americans. So, I don't know if they're just not capable, if they're incapable of doing this, or maybe the American people are incapable of understanding what they're trying to do as far as hoodwinking, bamboozling the American people and thinking that they're up there for the betterment of the people, and instead of the betterment of the people, they're up there for themselves, and we're still not getting nothing done. Our schools is dangerous. Cops is quitting. There's a shortage of school teachers. The airline industry can't stay on target. We're $30 trillion in debt. Our jails is completely full. Drug overdoses is worse than it's ever been. Teenage suicide's worse than it's ever been. Gun violence is worse than it's ever been. And they're going to get up there and smile on TV and tell me about their opponent of the things that they didn't do or can't do. But yet, no, they're not giving me a solution to the things that we can do. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And the American people have bought it hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. It's got to be the most horrendous, horriblest thing that the American people, our original ancestors, it's got to be mind-blowing to them up in heaven to watch all this stuff occurring towards how it's happening and how it's going down.
Calls to defund the FBI are just as wrong as calls to defund the police.
We hear the former vice president there, Sunland, at the end.
But yet, no, we got a town in New Orleans that may not be able to participate in the Mardi Gras because of all the police officers that's quit the force. You see what I'm saying? It's one ongoing administration problem after another. And it's all leading to total chaos, is where it's leading to, anarchy. Basically, I hate to say it, but it's basically all leaning towards an uprising. I guess an all-out and out civil war. And that saddens me to say that, because, you know, this country has bled so much and sacrificed so much in us having what we have, and to think that we're dealing with a bunch of nitwits that are willing to throw it all away and have made the left turns instead of the rights, and nobody's willing to hold them accountable in accountability issues pertaining to where we are today. It's just, I'm almost ashamed of being an American because of what has occurred. Good luck to all of us as we end our program. Good luck to each and every one of us. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. God bless America. God bless America's troops. God bless America's endeavors. May heaven help us all. In Jesus' name. Shalom.